Morning, my name's Ray. I'm with Team S.T.E.A.M. This morning I'm here at Flash Industrial Painting because, well, it's fall and the days are getting shorter, the days are getting cooler, and it won't be long before we start spending the majority of our time indoors rather than outdoors. And really, is there any better time to get our music on than that? It doesn't really matter to me what kind of music you listen to. I listen to quite a few different types myself, but more often than not, and ever since I was a kid, it's always been rock and roll. Some form of rock and roll. I go for everything from light-hearted sissy ballads to super heavy stuff you can't even begin to understand, and so much stuff in between. You know, me and my old buddy Travis and my old buddy Carlos, and there was a few others, Ronnie, we got together on many hundreds and hundreds of occasions, and heck, Travis and I and Carlos were in, I don't know, 6, maybe more bands. We mostly just alternated out drummers. I mean, it's hard to find a good drummer. And so if we found a new drummer, we started a new band. And we played many private shows. Many times we'd sit down there and sit at his play, at Travis's place or Carlos's place and practice. And then we would take our instruments to parties once in a while and play it there. And then there was, for a while, a house, a big house, belonged to a guy named Tom. And we stayed there. We didn't stay there, but we had our equipment there. He had a giant living room, and we'd all have our equipment set up in the corner, and we'd show up for parties often. I don't know, maybe as many as a dozen times during the time Tom lived there, that we'd show up and play while there was parties going on. And so we weren't the kind of band, and I was never in the kind of band that played big shows ever. Just tiny little stuff where nobody was paying to get in, you know, but mostly we just had a lot of fun just getting together and banging out some tunes, just playing some stuff that we knew, coming up with some new stuff. It was one of the funnest parts of my entire youth. And that kind of puts me in the mood to build a metal band out of styrofoam. No, just kidding. I'll be making it out of metal, of course. And what I've done is I took one of those and cut it in two. And then I took each one of those and cut it down to 14 inches. And then I notched them with a V shape, but not all the way through. That way I could bend them. And I'm going to do this 3 more times because there's going to be 4 bandmates. This is the first one, so I'm going to do this 3 more times at slightly different angles for each one, particularly the drummer. And there enters this old 379 Peterbilt hood. So then this was my transposed design. You can see it's all taped up. I untaped it to make sure, or I taped it up to cut it, and then I untaped it so I could trace it onto here 4 times, because there's going to be 4 bandmates, and their torsos are going to be virtually identical. That's really the only part of them. Well, a lot of the parts of them are their legs, their arms. They're going to be made out of the same material, so they'll be pretty darn close in dimension. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut all these out, form them all like this, so I can then decide on a shoulder and very upper torso template, build it out of this stuff too, transpose it onto here, cut all 4 of them out. So then I have basically the shoulder neck area. Now what I'm going to do is drill 4 or 5 holes, put in some 1/4 inch rivets, and that'll hold this piece all together so I can go to the next phase. Then I marked where the arms are going to go, cut them out. Then I put these corner pieces, curved pieces in there, and right now they're just held in there by the pinch point itself. That's all, just the tension of the pinch point is all that's holding them. Now I'm going to slip this down over this. When that comes out the top of there, between those two, I'm going to pick a good advantageous spot for the arms to be, and I'm going to weld them there. And now I'm going to start on the wood portion of this build. I only have one of the bandmates built from the shoulders down, and it's only partially built. But the next thing I need to build to make sure all my proportions are correct before I can finish the lower arms, the forearms of that bandmate, is the guitar. I need to know where those forearms are going to point, how far they need to go. I need to know all that, and so I need to have the guitar built and in place. And I've decided I want to build 2 of them, a bass guitar and a lead guitar, and I want to build them out of wood. And I want to build them out of pallet wood because I've got some pallet wood here that's just thick enough that the proportions are going to be right, and I'll laminate them together and build 2 guitars out of them. And now what I've done is I've taken one of these 2 guitars and I've held it up here, and I've taken measurements from the elbow down to where it would be most convenient, and from this elbow to where it would be most convenient, and they of course have to be the same. And what I've come up with is a 5.5 inch arm. And I'm probably going to do a 5.5 inch forearm for all 4 bandmates. They're going to be very, very similar in size. And so what I've done is I've gone ahead and cut that out. This one still needs to be ground out a little bit further, but that's what I've done over here. And then push this forearm up in there. And I'll weld it, but it'll hold really well for now. And then I'm gonna get the other one put in place and then put the guitar, one of these guitars up there, and get them set to where I actually want them, and then go ahead and weld them. And now we've got the other one in place. Nothing's welded, nothing's even tacked. If I bump this, this one will probably fall out. But now I can put the guitar up here and figure out exactly where I do want them. Before I decide to go ahead and weld them, I think I'm gonna go ahead and build some hands. And if I can build some hands that I can make work, I'm gonna go ahead and build 8 hands. So all the hands, all the left hands and all the right hands are all built for all 4 band members. And so, like anything else that I go to build out of steel, if it's a new design, I put it on heavy paper first, cut it out, make sure it's gonna work, make the modifications I need. Once I know it's gonna work, then transpose it to the steel, then cut it out. Okay, and here's what I've sketched out. You see I changed where I wanted the thumb to be, and it's just a rough sketch. All right, now I've got this copied off onto here. I did 4 rights and 4 lefts, even though it doesn't matter, but I did it anyway and flipped this over and did it anyway. That way, if I did choose to leave these shiny, because this side is less shiny, if I did choose to leave them shiny, I would have match sets that way. So that would just leave my options open for later. And now I've got them all cut out. There's 4 rights, 4 lefts, and now I can set all of them aside, but the right and the left I need for this guy. And now what I've done here is I've gone ahead and welded these hands in place and then bent them to have a guitar strumming or playing, plucking motion, and then hitting a few chords. Even have the thumb bent around. And I've done all that so I can set this up here and have the neck part just rest in there. Now if I let go of this, the neck part would stay, but of course that would fall. But what I'm going to do is, as you can see, I've got a little tiny dot right there, little black dot. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole, just a small hole, all the way through the guitar, or most of the way through, doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to weld just a tiny little nail, a finish nail, so it doesn't even have a head on it, to the end of that thumb. So then all I have to do is push this in place into the hole and then set that there, and I can remove the guitar anytime I want. That's the next step. I'm going to drill that hole and weld on that pin. I didn't drill it all the way through, but I made it to where it would fit in all the way. And so now I can remove the guitar, but if I choose not to, it'll stay there forever. So after 4 or 5 tries, this is the pattern I came up with. It needed a few modifications, so I went ahead and modified it and then copied it off onto here and then cut it out. This is what we've ended up with. Just a slightly longer, these parts here are slightly longer than the other one. So this is what we're going with. Now I'm going to bend it into a shoe shape and then use this tape to tape the back side of it so I can try it onto the guy and see how it fits. And I'm not unhappy with it. I mean, when you squeeze it and it starts to take the shape it should, it's a decent enough profile from the side. I don't want a big long shoe, and I don't want something too short, but I want something I can make a bunch of for the whole band. So it's not as noticeable, but it is quite noticeable that they do have shoes. And here I've got 4 of them cut out. Got the first 4 put on here, the first 4 cut out. I'm going to start bending on them and seeing if I can make some shoes out of them. All right, so I have all 8 cut out, all 8 bent into place. Now they all just need tack welded at the back. So you just squeeze them closed, tack weld them. And that's what they're going to look like on the guy. All right, so they've all been tack welded. There's all 4 pairs of shoes ready to go. And what I've done here is I've taken this largest of the trampoline poles, or one of the largest, and I notched it on both sides, the shape of this, tapped it down on there and welded it on front and back. So now it's on there. And then this slips right down in there. Now I'm going to take 4 of these and find a way to get them all to stand upright. And then I'm going to build 4 heads on top of them so they're ready to go for all 4 bandmates. And I can choose which one I want to put in here. And then I can remove them if I want. So now I have the bandmates, the next 3 bandmates outer necks cut, and I will get them notched so they'll fit like this one here does. And I've got all 4 of the inner necks all cut and then prepped on the outer portion. So now I can put them in these holes that I drilled in this, and they fit really well. And then they're not going to tip over. And I can put one here, and one here, and I can go ahead and start forming the heads onto them and working the heads and doing everything on just this one thing. And when I want to remove this from the work area, I can remove it, and this is just where I'll store the heads for now. And here's what I've come up with for my foil design. It's just a rough design, but it's going to be good enough to cover with fiberglass and do what I got to do. You set it up here. Now that sets up too tall. I'm going to end up cutting this neck and probably even this neck down. But I think proportionally it's about where I want it. Now I can just put some, because proportionally it's too small right now, but it needs to be, because I still got to put a bunch of layers of fiberglass and everything else on it. So I can't have it be about the right size. It's got to be too small right now. So I've got this one. This one needs to be built up one more layer, and then I'm going to build 2 more of them. And then I'm going to cover them with glass. All right, so I've got all 4 heads built and built up enough that they're going to be proportionally correct. Again, it's a hair small, but it's going to have the stuff on the outside. It's going to have the fiberglass, all the body work. So I'm actually pretty happy with it, with the sizing. All 4 are built, and they're a bit tall. I know that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to build them all up, get them all done, and then see how they're going to look on each figure. And for each figure, I'll be cutting this off enough that this can still have fiberglass around it and fit down in it. And I'll be cutting the bottom of this off enough that this will come down and be proportional. Right now it does look too tall, because it is, but I know that. And I got my workstation set up here. I've just got this piece of railroad tie, and I've got my board actually screwed to it. And that way, you know, it can't really come loose. And then I'm just going to sit here on this stool, mix up some fiberglass, spread it onto here, and then use whatever size I think I need to keep putting small patches all the way around here until I've patched this up enough that it is all solid and the top is 3 times thicker than the rest, because I'm going to be putting hair in it. You know what I've done here is I've just taken my marker and I've traced up on some of this heavy paper the shape that I want for the jaw. I've tried it on a few of the mostly finished. I did the top side, then I turned them upside down, put them in cups, and then I did the underside because I couldn't do both sides at once. That's why they are that way. But after I did the top side of them, I did some figuring, and that's a good job for all 4. Traced it off onto just a mangled piece of old stainless, and we'll cut all 4 of them out of this. Now I've got all 4 bottom jaws bent, got the holes drilled, and got them mounted. And the reason I mounted these jaws so early is because for my next fiberglass casting, I need to know how it's going to match up with this jaw. I need to use each individual jaw as its own mold so it matches up the way I want it to with the upper plate. I can't use one jaw for all 4. They have to be the one that's going on this specific head, and then I have to build it from there. So I'm going to be using these as a mold to do the top plate. So we've taped up the jaw here, and then I put my fiberglass over it just so I can get something to go straight down, like a bottom lip or an upper lip kind of wood, to meet the bottom jaw right where it needs to meet it. And then I've covered the whole thing on all 4 with, I put a little patch on that hole that was in the nose, but I put clear tape over all 4 so I can just unmask them easily. And here I've sketched out some noses, cut out 2 of them. Here's the other 2 I need to cut out. Here's one of them I've already put on. Now I've got all 4 of these guys all cleaned up. I've got 3 of the noses placed. This guy already has enough of a nose. I'm going to build onto it. I've got the tops all resanded, all because I want all the little spurs and stuff off of them. That way I can put fiberglass layers on the top. You can see like that's really thin. And there's some thin spots, and I want it to be good and thick. I want it to be a good thick crown on all these guys. And then I'm going to add to the brow of every one of them, and then I'm going to cover the noses, and then I'm going to build up that nose. And now here I've fiberglassed the noses on 3 of these guys. This guy already had a decent start, so I put a bigger nose on him. Now I've taken one of these large spoons and just traced it onto here. Now I've come up with a couple of designs I'm happy with. This is kind of a Wayfarer, similar to a Wayfarer from back in the 80s. And this is similar to, I don't know what the design would be called, but it's just a narrow sort of sunglasses. And I'm going to cut both of these out, trace them back onto the spoons, and then cut them out of the spoons. All right, so went ahead and traced that off onto there, cut it out, put the Wayfarer design on this spoon and this spoon, and put this other kind of turbo sort of design on this spoon. You can see how they're going to look there. I've already cut them out. I've already ground them and smoothed them up. They've got that Wayfarer shape, and these have these kind of slotted shape. Now it's about time to get the welder out, actually. Here we've got the first coat sanded on these two guys and on the top of that guy. Now I'm going to put the second coat on these guys, and then I'll start on these guys. And now here they are in different stages of progression. This one here is pretty much ready for primer. Same with this guy. This guy barely got started on. This one I'm just in between coats. I got to sand this coat here in just a minute. Now what I've got here is this box of silverware. I've got 2 boxes of silverware. This is one of them. 3 actually, and this is one of them. And I've dug out 13, although I only needed 12 of this type of fork, 4 of this exact type of fork, and 6 of that type of fork. None of the same as each other, and it doesn't matter, but I'm going to cut my tuner keys out of all of these forks. And so now that I've got those kind of about how I want them sketched on there, I'm going to cut. These are the 3 different designs of fork. And so here we've got all of these forks cut apart. I got the 3 models of fork still out here. All the remaining handles and prongs have been, you know, I've put them back in the box because they, you know, who knows what I'm going to use them for later. But I've got these cut and separated out. 12 of them here, 4 of them here for the bass, 6 of them here for the lead guitar. And this one I've got masked off so I could paint the frets white where they need to be. That's just the Gibson look. And then this one has this little flourish at the top that I wanted to have on there for this particular model in gold. Again, we've got the between 16th and 8th inch fine line. I went all the way around the edge. And then we unmasked this. And that's what we've come up with. And here I've cut out 3 of these little top pieces that go up here on each guitar, and then strings run through them. I can't remember right now what the name of them is. Now here I've sanded everything, all these edges of everything, and I've glued these together, this together, and this together. Those are all 3 serve as the bottom. So now I've drilled all the holes, installed all the pegs with glue, screwed in all of the screws that I painted silver, they were black, and then put a little bit of bodywork on the top so I can sand that off later when it's dry and put a dab of silver on that. And what I've done is I've taken this, just a file folder, just heavy duty paper, cut it in half, punched a hole in it, and stuck it down on the neck. Now I'm gonna stretch it down and start to figure out exactly how I want to cut this out. Trial and error until I get it the way I want it. And then once I get it the way I want, I'm gonna use that as a pattern, transpose it onto what's left of this Peterbilt hood panel, and cut it out. And then we're going to bend it, see how well it works here, and make any alterations if need be. Then I bent that, cut it all out and bent it, placed it, put rivets in it in strategic spots, and now I have the shoulders covered. So here I've just wire brushed this down with this little wire wheel here, and I braided it in that sort of fashion. I'm only going to spray paint this, so it's not that big a deal. And I've sanded this, I took this smaller pipe and welded it to this washer, and then I just riveted the washer to this paint can lid, and I'm going to spray paint the whole thing, you know, flat black or some color like that. That way the guy will go ahead and stand on it. Now I've got a way to keep him stood up. So what I've done here is I've gone ahead and cut this neck down, and I've cut the neck down on this, slipped the 2 together like I said I would in the beginning. I knew it was tall. Now it's about the height I want, and now I'm going to take the head out because it's always just going to slip out. And I'm going to go ahead and begin prepping for paint. So here we've got the jeans done. Got kind of the faded effect around the knees. And then we did the top in satin black. And I just masked off the hands because I want to leave them chrome. And now I'm going to mask this off so I can do the neck in the same color that I'm going to be doing the face on this one. And now I'm going to take this pile of stainless that I have cut from another piece of truck stainless, and I'm going to weld them to this. Like this. I've just got done fitting this to the head, and I'm going to drill a hole right there to start with, and then I'm going to put the Mohawk back on there and make sure my second hole is, because I've already marked it too, I want to make sure it's right though before I drill them both. And here we've got it all riveted on, one rivet at the front, one at the back, and now here he is with his jaw installed. It's all riveted in place. I went ahead and masked off and spray painted black in there so we wouldn't see this same color down in here. It would be, you know, shadowed. I'm thinking it's about time we give this guy some shoes and a guitar. All right, now this first guy's finished. Let's go ahead and walk around him, have a look. All right, here he is. The only thing missing is the bass strings. I need to get some fishing line or something like that, and I'll be stringing it. I've got the holes already in place. It's already ready. I just haven't put strings on it yet. That, and I didn't know where the fingers were going to end up, so now that I do. Other than that, this punk rocker's done. He's a real metalhead. Got his leather jacket, his pants, chrome shoes or stainless shoes, stainless hands, stainless jaw and hair for reasons that we'll never know. Hey, it's a robot planet. We don't have to understand it. We just know that they like to rock. All right, so we got one of these rockers in the books now, and I've got 3 more to go, and I'll be posting those videos as soon as they're done. If you like this, go ahead and say so, because that always helps. Subscribe if you haven't already, if you're interested in this, or semis, or cars, or construction, or gardening, or any of the many other things we do around here, because, you know, we always got something going on. See you guys around.